Hello guys, welcome back again to another tutorial. My name is Dorothy. In today's video I'll be showing you how I made this beautiful wrap dress with a shawl collar. If this is something you're interested in, what am I even saying? It is something you're interested in, that's why you click on the video. But please make sure you watch this video to the very end so that you don't miss out on any detail or explanation. Okay, so let's get right into the video. The material we'll be using for this project is this beautiful pink Mikado material. We have about 4 yards here. I'm making 2 dresses, so 1.5 yards should be enough for each of the dresses. I have my net here as well and also my lining. So I'll take this out and I'll go and cut the portion that I'll be using for my upper bodice. That is the half length. I'm done cutting out the half length, and as you can see I have 2 pieces here, one for the front and the other for the back. Now to know the actual measurement in cutting out your pieces, that is your half length, you simply divide the chest measurement by 4 and add 3 inches to it if you are working with a child. But if you are working with an adult, you divide the bust circumference by 4 and add up to 4 or 5 inches to it depending on how busty the adult is. Okay, then you measured your desired half length, that is from your shoulder to your belly button where you want your half length to stop, then cut it out, and that is what I have done. But because we are making a wrap dress, I added 4 inches to my front pieces for the wrap, and I indicated that by using my chalk to rule a line that you are seeing now. So from the center front of this front piece to where you are seeing this line, it's 4 inches. I don't know why I forgot to measure all these points for you. While for the back piece, I added 1 inch for the zipper allowance, that is after taking the actual body measurement. Okay, so I'll fold this 4 inches in like this, and I'll use my pin to hold it together, and I'll place my front piece on the back piece just as you can see me doing. On this upper part that you see me directing, I'm going to rule a line of about 1/2 inch, and that line will serve as the shoulder line. From the shoulder line, I will be taking the half length measurement. The half length measurement I am working with is 9 inches, and I added 1 inch extra for sewing allowance. Now I'll use my ruler to connect this point I marked horizontally. On the shoulder line, I will divide the shoulder measurement that I am working with by 2, and I'll be marking it on the shoulder line. The shoulder measurement I'm working with is 11 inches, divided by 2 is 5.5. So on the point I mark my shoulder measurement, I'll come down there to mark my armhole line, and I will mark the same 5.5 as the armhole line. So now I'll use my ruler to connect this point I mark on a straight line, and that will be my armhole line, and I will extend the line horizontally also, and that will serve as the chest line. On the armhole line, I will use my measuring tape to measure, and I will divide it by 2, and I will mark the midpoint. On that midpoint, I will go in by 0.25 inches. Because we are working with a child, we don't need to dip in the armhole too much. 0.25 inch is just perfect. On the chest line, I divided the chest circumference that I'm working with by 4, and I marked it. The chest circumference I'm working with is 23 divided by 4 is 5.75. Then I will use my curve ruler to connect the 3 points together to create the armhole curve. For the neckline measurement, the neck width I'll be working with for both the front and the back pattern is 2 inches. I marked that, and because the front piece will be having a wrap, there is no point marking the neck depth for the front piece. So for the back piece, I came down by 1 inch for the neck depth. Then I'll use my chalk to create a round neckline like this. On the waistline, I will be dividing the chest measurements by 4, and I'll mark it on the waistline. You know, usually children have this big tummy, so they don't even have a waist yet. So I added 1 inch sewing allowance to it. Then I'll use my ruler to connect this point I mark. Now I'll use my scissors to cut out the parts that I drafted. So I started cutting from the waist all the way to the side. I forgot to slant my shoulder, so on my shoulder line I'll come down by 0.25 inch, that is 1/4 inch, and I'll mark that. Then I'll use my ruler to connect this point I marked to the neckline. After slanting my shoulder, I went on to cut out the armhole, the neckline, and also the shoulder slant, and this is what we have after I was done cutting out everything. And I will also use my chalk to identify the wrong face. On the zipper allowance for the back piece, I went up by 1 inch. Then I'll use my ruler to connect that point I mark all the way to the waistline like this. This is to eliminate any form of zipper bulge. So now I'll use my scissors to cut that part out, and I will also open up the zipper allowance and I will notch the zipper allowance as well. And that's all for the back piece, so I'll keep it aside while we work on the front piece. For the wrap, on the waistline at the center front right here, I came up by 1 inch. Then I used my ruler to connect a slant line from the shoulder to this point that I came up by 1 inch. Then I'll use my scissors to cut that out. I open up the front and I also notch the part for the wrap, and that's basically all for the drafting and cutting of the upper bodice. Next, I will be cutting out lining for each of the piece, and I'll be doing this off camera. And this is what we have after I was done cutting out the lining for each of my pieces. So let's go ahead and sew. I will keep the front piece one corner while we work on the back piece. I placed my back pieces right side facing each other, and I use office pin to hold it together because I will be attaching a collar on the neckline, and the collar will be running from the front neckline all the way to the back neckline. That simply means the zipper will not reach the collar. So on the zipper allowance, I mark 1 inch, and I'll take this to the sewing machine and I will stitch it first. And I will also do the same thing to the lining piece as well. And this is what we have after I was done stitching the 1 inch both on the main fabric and on the lining piece. And I also ironed the zipper allowance so it stayed flat, and when I'll be fixing the zipper it will be much more easier. So I place my zipper like this in such a way that the head of the zipper will come below the 1 inch that I stitched. Now I open up my zipper and I use my pin to fix the zipper, to first of all tag the zipper all the way around the zipper allowance so that you see what we have before I'll go ahead and stitch it. And this is what our zipper will come out looking like after sewing. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and I'll go and sew it. This is what I have after I was done fixing the zipper. So right now we are going to be attaching the lining to it. I'll turn the fabric to the wrong face, then I'll place the lining on it, wrong face facing each other, and I will join both the zipper allowance lining to the main fabric. Then I'll go ahead and stitch, and I will do the same thing for the second side as well. If you have pins, you can pin it down like the way you see me doing before you go and sew, and if you don't have pin, you can sew directly on the fabric. Okay, this is what we have after I was done fixing the lining to the back piece. That is the zipper areas. You can see how beautiful and how neat the zipper area is already looking. So I'll keep this aside while we work on the front piece. For the front piece, I will place my front piece this way, then I will join the shoulder of the front piece to that of the back piece, main fabric to main fabric, right side facing each other. Okay, and I'll do the same thing to the lining pieces as well. I will place the shoulder of the front piece to that of the lining, right sides facing each other. That is, now it's now fabric to fabric, lining to lining. I'll take this to the sewing machine and I'll go ahead and join the shoulder line. This is what I have after I was done joining the shoulder. To join the front piece to its lining, I will turn my main fabric to the right side and I will turn the lining to the right side as well. That is right side facing each other. Then I will pin the front like this and I'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch that part, and I'll do the same thing to the second side as well. I'll turn the main fabric to the right side and turn the lining to the right side as well, right side facing each other, and I'll pin that part and I'll stitch it as well. So this is what I have after I was done joining the front piece to it lining. Now I'll take this to the ironing table and I will iron it. You can see how neat our pieces is looking after ironing. Now to join the bodies, I'll place the front piece and the back piece together, right side facing each other. We'll be working on the main fabric first, and I'll use pin to pin the side. When I was drafting this piece, I left 1 inch sewing allowance, so I'll be sewing the side by the 1 inch sewing allowance that I left. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and I'll sew the sides, and I also do the same thing to the lining piece. I join the lining together, right side facing each other, and I'll be sewing the side by 1 inch as well. This is what I have after I was done joining the side, and I also went on to iron the side so that the side will stay flat. When I was joining the side, I remember to fix the band. So to fix your band, if you don't know how to fix the band, you simply place the band on the main fabric 1 inch above the waistline. You can see how our wrap dress is coming out very well. Now to create our collar, I'll go ahead and measure around the neckline. Okay, I'll start measuring from the front piece all the way around the neckline, and when I measured it, I had 26.5 inches. You can measure it again so you will be sure that the measurement is okay. After measuring around the neckline, I went on to cut a pieces that I'll be using for the collar. So the length of these pieces is about 30 inches and the width is about 7 inches, as you can see. I folded the pieces into 2 equal halves. Then on the main bodice of the dress, that is the half length, I measured the back neckline. So I folded the pieces like this into 2, then I measured the neckline, that is the back neckline, and when I did this I had 2.5 inches. So if I open this up, the back will be 5 inches. So on my band I came down by 2.5 inches and I make a line there. Then I'll just go ahead and curve the band like this. You can leave it straight if you want, but it is better if you curve it because it will give you that shawl effect. After making this curve, I'll go ahead and cut it out. This is what our band looks like. I notched the midpoint and I also opened the band up. If you're not adding any design around the collar, it is better you leave it like this, but if you are, please go ahead and open it up. And I also went on to cut out a pieces of this black crepe fabric that I'll be using to design the collar. The width of this piece is 1 inch and the length is 30 inches, same as the band. I folded this piece into 2 like this. Then I place it on the band. I place this in such a way that the folded edge will be on the outside while the open edge will be on the inside where we'll be stitching. Then I place the second band on each right side facing each other. You can go ahead and pin this before you take it to the sewing machine and sew, but for me I'll be running a stitch directly on it. This is what we have after I was done stitching the collar, and I also went on to iron it. On this edge here I folded about 1/2 inch in, then on the other edge I left it open where I'll be attaching it to the neckline of the dress. The midpoint of this dress will be the side I stitched my zipper allowance, while on the band I already notched the midpoint. So I placed the band on the dress like this, midpoint to midpoint, right side facing each other. Then I used my pin to hold it together and I arranged the band all around the neckline. Then I used my pin to secure it. After pinning the band all around the neckline, I'll take it to the sewing machine and I'll go and stitch. Then for the end here, I'll fold it into 2 and stitch it, then cut out the excesses, and I'll do the same thing to the other side. After I was done doing that, this other part I will fold it in like this. Then I'll go ahead and run a top stitch to cover this first stitch up. This is what it looks like after I was done sewing the collar. You can see how beautiful it is. So next we'll be working on the fleece parts of this dress. We already have our fleece cut out and I have a video on how to draft a pleated fleece. If you haven't seen this video on the channel, please, I'll leave the link of the video in the description box. Please make sure you watch that video so that you know how to make a fleece if you don't know how to. So I already have this cut out and I also have my net already cut out and gathered. So right now I'll go ahead and place my gathered net on the fleece, and I'll first of all stitch that. This is what we have after I was done attaching the net to the fleece part. So on my upper bodice, as you can see, I folded it into 2 and I notched the midpoint. I also left some about 1/2 inch allowance on the zipper allowance where I'll be attaching my fleece to. So I'll fold my fleece into 2 also like this, and I'll notch the midpoint. Then I'll place the upper bodies on the fleece, midpoint to midpoint, right side facing each other. Then I went on to pin it because the front pieces is a wrap and it's joined together. So when I'm attaching this to the fleece part, I had to join the front piece together with it lining to the fleece. But when I get to the back piece, I had to separate the lining from the main fabric. So I had to join the main fabric to the fleece, leaving the lining because I'll be attaching the lining differently. This is what I have after I was done pinning the upper bodies to the fleece. Now I'll take this to the sewing machine and I'll go and stitch it. This is what we have after I was done attaching the upper bodies to the fleece. So for the zipper now, I'll take it to the sewing machine and I'll go and finish up the zipper. That is fixing it to the flip part. This is what I have after I was done attaching the zipper to the flip. Next on is to attach our lining. So I already cut out the pieces of my lining out. It's just a normal full flip that I cut out. Then I folded my lining into two and I notched the midpoint. And remember, I already notched the midpoint of the main fabric. So I placed the midpoint of the lining to the midpoint of the dress, okay, that I already notched earlier, wrong side facing each other. Then I went ahead to pin. I will join the lining together with it wrapped on the front piece, then I'll pin it down. And when I get to the back, you remember that I separate the main fabric from the lining at the back, so I'll attach the lining to the lining of the back piece. And when I was done with this side, I'll turn over to the other side and I'll pin it all the way around. And when I get to the back where my lining is separated, I will attach the lining to the lining. Then I'll take it to the sewing machine and go and sew it. This is what I have after I was done attaching the lining to the dress. So now I'll turn this over to the wrong face and I'll go ahead and finish up fixing the zipper to the lining as well. What I basically did was I arranged my lining to the zipper allowance just as you can see me doing. Then I pin it down, and I also did the same thing to the second side as well. I arranged my zipper allowance to the lining. Then I took this to the sewing machine and went on to finish off fixing the zipper. To create the puff sleeve, I have the spaces of my lining that I cut out and I'll be cutting the two sleeves together. So I folded this lining into four just as you can see me doing. After folding, I had to iron so it stays flat when I am drafting. The width of these pieces is 7 inches. For the sleeve biceps, I came down by 2.5 inches since I'm making this for a child, and I used my chalk to create the armhole line like this. The length of the sleeve I am working with is 6 inches as well. I marked that, then I connected the mark line horizontally. Now to get the armhole measurement of the sleeve that I'm working with, I measured the armhole on the dress just as you can see me doing, and when I measured around the armhole, I had 6 inches. So on my sleeve armhole, I measured the armhole and I marked the 6 inches. Then I added 1 inch sewing allowance. On the length of the sleeve, I divided my round sleeve measurement into 2 and I mark it as well. The round sleeve measurement I am working with is 6 inches, and when I divided it by 2, I had 3 inches. Then I add half an inch sewing allowance. Now I will use my ruler to connect the point like this, and I will go on to cut it out. The lining piece is ready, so I'll be using this lining piece to cut out the main piece for the puff sleeve on the main fabric. I have this piece of fabric that I'll be cutting the puff sleeve with. I folded this piece into 2 as you can see. For this puff, you have to determine how full you want your puff sleeve to be. So on this fabric, the width is longer by 8 inches. So I place the lining piece on it like this, and I will use my pin to hold them together. Then I will use my free hand again to cover the sleeve armhole, and I will cut it out, and that's all. So I will place this piece on another fabric and I'll cut the second sleeve out. Now to create the puff, I will be pleating the armhole of the main fabric to the lining piece, and also the length I'll be pleating it as well on the lining piece. You can also make a gathered instead of pleating, so either gather or pleat. Make sure the armhole of the main fabric fits the armhole on the lining, and also the length of the main fabric fits that of the length of the lining. Even on both sides, everything is pleated around the lining. So guys, this is what I have after I was done pleating the main fabric on the lining. So now I'll fold this sleeve into 2, then I will pin this side. I'll take this to the sewing machine. I'll go and stitch this by the 1 inch sewing allowance that I left when I was drafting the sleeve. After that, I'll take this to the sewing machine and go and fix the sleeve to the dress. This is what it looks like after I was done fixing the sleeves. You can see how beautiful this dress turned out. And for the inner of this dress, that is the lining and the net, I went on to weave it, and I also weaved the length of the dress. So I won't be folding the length again, and this is totally optional. If you want to fold the length, please go ahead and fold it.
I have this bow that I made, and I'll be attaching the bow to the dress. This is actually optional also. I have a video on how to make a bow on this channel. In case you want to check that video out, I'll leave the link of the video in the description box. I don't even know where I will place this bow, but when I figure it out, you'll see it in the intro. I hope this video was helpful. To see more of this, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please like this video, and if you have any question concerning this tutorial, leave your question in the comment section and I will attend to it. Thank you all for watching. See you all in my next one.